Good morning. I'm Augusta Goodcrawl, and I'm here with Amy Magyar. We are both coaches at FromWithin Coaching, and Amy is actually the owner and founder of FromWithin Coaching. So it's always a pleasure to be here weekly with her to do these strength talks.
Yeah.
This series of strength talks, we're really focusing on how learning about our top strengths can help us show up in the world, can help us get more aligned with who we are at an authentic level, like who are we actually being in the world today. It's really exciting to this series, I think, because we're really at this time in the world and in 2021 right now, really looking at what is important, how can we go forward without fear, attachments to past. There's so much desire right now to really kind of move forward in an authentic, self-assured way. And, we talk about strengths. This is where a strength-based, coaching company, Don Clifton, the founder of CliftonStrengths at the time, now, called Strength Finders, was he invested 40 years of research in his life and really studying human performance and human behavior, and how can humans really show up as exceptionally as they can.
And I think what's so important is we have done a series where we've looked at each one of the strengths, and we have looked at what does it mean to have that particular strength in a professional setting, in your career as an executive. And we did talk about sort of the human side of it, but this series is really very much about just kind of going back to what you said, the being, especially right now. I think so many of us are lost in what the world is throwing at us, and we're challenged at how to maybe show up to it. But when we bring our strengths, we can be so much more powerful in uncertain times when we are certain in understanding our strengths. And I think what's interesting, I'll let you introduce this next strength, because I think it literally is the epitome of uncertainty in so many ways. So today we are doing which strength?
We are talking about command. And this is a very rare strength. So I will introduce it, and we'll continue to talk about it. I'm fascinated to dive into this with you, because you have been coaching for so much longer than me. As it's so rare, I have not seen a lot of it come through in my clients. And so it'll be fun to hear what you have to say about it. But let's talk about command. It is an influencing theme. And the definition of command is people exceptionally talented in the command theme have presence. They can take control of a situation and make decisions. They bring decisiveness and emotional clarity. Yeah. And command, like I said, is very rare. It is out of the 34 strengths. I think it runs about 33rd. So it's in less than 5% of the population have this strength.
Yes. Yeah. The words that are coming up to me right now when I think about how CliftonStrengths defines it, the term that's coming up for me is unconscious control. So I know that makes no sense, but let me just explain, or maybe it makes sense for everybody with command. Just went, yes, is when you have command, you just don't even know that you take control. You just show up. And even if what you do is just walk in a door, your incredible certainty shows up, right? So there's almost like this unconscious control that you just put on. As a child of an alcoholic, what I will say is that although command is not one of the strengths that I have, I do have an actual conscious control factor in my brain. So I walk into a situation and I'm often trying to control a situation for the best outcome. I think with somebody with command, it's unconscious. They don't even know. And I may be manipulating the situation to prevent harm from happening, because that's often what a child of an alcoholic will do. But I don't think that's the case for command. The command person just walks in, right? And just is like, what's happening? And isn't flustered. What else, when you think about command, I know that you've done a lot of research on this, but you haven't worked with a client. What are your other thoughts about command?
Well, that's so interesting. What was just coming to me when you were talking was, like being on the the playground, and you know, as children, you can see, like, sometimes I've had children, and I remember seeing this on the playground, just this them following like one of the other children, and it's this, like you said, this unconscious ability to come in, and that's why it's an influencing thing. It's how we affect others.
Yes.
And when you have command, there's this natural ability, almost to see what needs to be done, and to say so, not just
Yeah.
to see it, but to actually say so, to take action toward it, and to also influence others to take risks and take action toward it. And
Yeah.
that is very unconscious. And when we talk about, you know, learning our strengths, again, the whole purpose of this series is when we understand how we truly are at an innate, you know, natural DNA type kind of way, how we navigate the world, and we can trust it and lean on it, then we show up so powerfully. So
Yes.
these people that have command in their top 5 really have, like I said, a way of kind of seeing ahead to what needs to be done, and then taking action toward it, helping others move toward it. You know, it's you know, in reading more about command, they talk about, like, they're not truth speakers, but they're able to lean into maybe difficult conversations
Yes.
where other people might avoid it. It's that seeing what needs to be done and not being detoured by, you know.
But let me clarify. For the activators in the world, some of the activators may be thinking to themselves, Augusta, that kind of sounds like me. Like, I'll just go right in. And what I will say is, let's remember the energy of command is from the lack of fear and the knowledge to know that you're probably going to be the only one that's going to lean into it. An activator who starts something gets excited at the beginning of something. So just where they get their energy is 2 different things, right? Is
Absolutely.
the command is where I'm going to get my energy is going to be coming in and bringing that certainty, even if the certainty is, I'm certain I don't know what's next, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, what an amazing kind of, you know, idea of like, yeah, I'll follow you.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
you know, talking about the energy, you know, I kind of see with command, there's this activation, and not an activator like you were saying, but this kind of catalyst. They find this energy with, I don't want to say conflict or confrontation, but they are able to utilize that leaning in to maybe difficult conversations or maybe difficult first steps, and use that energy to help move through and go towards resolution. And I think
Yes.
that's where a difference is. You know, activator, like you said, it's excited about the starting, but then it doesn't go as far. There's not to the
Yes.
resolution of it. And that's what I see the difference in. So Amy, talk to me a little bit about command and leadership.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that, I mean, to me, those 2 words are like, oh my gosh. So how do you speak to somebody who has command about leadership?
Yeah. You would think they're synonymous, right? I mean, they feel like
Exactly.
it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I think what's amazing with command is that there's such an incredible core strength in that person with command,
Mhm.
that when we think about leadership, we think about you know, Brene Brown's, the beauty of a really strong leader is they're going to show up vulnerable. And we'll talk about that for a second, but they just show up with certainty, even if their certainty is, I don't know what's about to happen, but I'm certain we're going to navigate it. The thing that happens though, I think with folks with command, you know, they show up, they use inspirational words and strong energy, and you just get drawn to them,
Mhm.
is that they may not be as vulnerable as someone like
Mhm.
Brene Brown suggests they be, because command doesn't mean that you know it all. It just means you have a gut feeling, and you're going to bring that intuition and that sense of, we need to do something. And let me back up. What's beautiful is the Brene Brown side of leadership about having really tough conversations.
Yep.
Command is there. Like, command has
Yeah,
no problem doing that, right?
exactly.
Lean right into it. However, I think one of the things, and we talked about this, is where leadership and command could be an interesting dance is showing that even the leader may not be with command, may not be 100% perfect, got it
Yeah.
dialed, had their coffee that day, whatever it is. So just a warning with people with command, it doesn't mean you have your, I think the technical term is shit together every single moment, right? Show that you may not. You have it enough that people aren't going to get scared when you do say, I'm not sure, let's figure this out, right? And also remember, you don't have to have it figured out 100%. That's what you have amazing people that work for you for, right? You don't have to be the know-it-all. So
Absolutely.
that's and I think kind of playing with that, if I could, Augusta, leading with sort of where does command show up in your career, even if you're not a leader, is that you're very much probably the person that takes the action in the meetings. You probably have low toleration for sort of small talk or not oversimplifying, but sort of overcomplicating things.
Yep.
Let's just get to this. Let's go right in. Let's just dive in. We're going to figure it out when we get in.
Mhm.
And if you come up with somebody with deliberative, it may be a little bit of a chaff. But I think one of the things that's important, if you have somebody with command on your team,
Mm.
is that they are a natural born influencer, even if they don't have that title. So the other thing is that they don't need as much micromanagement. They don't need, I mean, first of all, micromanagement you should not be doing. However, if you find yourself doing it, or you find yourself in a situation or you're in a project where they may feel you're micromanaging, it's great opportunity for you to practice not, because they don't need to be checked in on. As much as maybe someone else who's in the deliberative phase maybe is still processing the decision and which best way to go.
Yeah.
Best thing, if you have someone, if you're a leader and you have someone with command, get obstacles out of their way and just let them go. They're gonna get you there.
Well, absolutely. I know I've sat in many meetings, and I think this probably anybody can have this experience where there's just uncomfortableness. There's an inability there's like an elephant in the room, possibly. And that kind of thing, if there's not somebody that is there with command, can halt a process, can really derail a lot of things, because a lot of people don't want to speak to that. And somebody with command will be your person who will say, there's the elephant, let's talk about it. Right?
Yeah. So make sure, if you're leading at someone with command, make sure you let them know, hey, if we see this, I'm going to look to you to ask that provocative question or share what's really there. It's two very coach-like approaches, right? Of provocative questions and sharing what we see. It's very much a truth teller. Here's what's happening. Here's what I see. How do we move forward? So
Absolutely.
Great person to have in the room for sure.
Absolutely.
Remember, they don't know it all, but don't be put off if it feels like maybe they do. It's not. It's what they know. Oh, my cat's going to join us for this. Speaking of command, my cat's got command. She knows everything, right? Is that it's that intuition. Everything's going to be okay. Maybe not right this second. Maybe we don't know everything right now, but we have enough. And what a great person to follow into any battle, figurative or literal. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm going to ask you, because I know that although having a client with this is not something that you've experienced yet, but I will ask you this as two people who really enjoyed being around horses. Did you ever have an instructor that was no nonsense, Augusta?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tell me about that person. Like, what was because I think with command, it's often, there is sort of a no nonsense style about them. So how did that show up in one of your instructors?
That's so funny, because immediately redhead. So that should say something. No, she would have extremely difficult conversations. I mean, almost to the point of fighting with the parents of her kids, or even the horses. She was no nonsense with the horses.
Yes.
And so it's that's really interesting. It's that ability to be like, hey, this is what needs to be done. I'm going to say what needs to be said. which in this world, today is that can be taken in a lot of different ways, right? I mean, we all have to be so careful,
Right.
but somebody with command is really able to speak that.
Yes.
And if you do have command, I know that one of the blind spots of any of our strengths, if we overuse it, command can come across as too direct,
Right.
bossy, all-knowing. So it's, if you do have command and you see that, what needs to be said, what needs to be done, how do you work with your tone, your presentation of it? And so again, I'm thinking back to my instructor, and she could have done some work with that to help it be less like this, because again, it's an influencing thing. You want to make sure that you're taking people with you, you're helping influence them in the right way, and not bringing up resistance. So,
not demanding.
Right.
Again, influencing is, I look at it as, it's such a beautiful grouping of themes, because it's about bringing along, influencing, of helping them see something and then saying, hey, let's come along with it, so that it sticks. And I think anytime we're told what to do, I don't know that it's going to stick that well, but when there's buy-in, and I think that's something, one of the beauties of command is that that person does show up so certain that we are the only mammal that follows a weak leader, right? Not in any part of the animal kingdom. That does not happen. We kick the weak leaders out. And yet I do think humans often will follow an uncertain leader. And I think that's what's so beautiful about command is that person's very attractive, because their certainty is super high.
Yeah.
They don't it's almost like they almost don't have to, what they have to be aware of is their tone, pacing, audience, right? What they don't have to do is master sort of the influence part. Like, the influence will come. They don't have to work high to influence. What they have to work on is the package the influence comes in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, it's that, you had talked about that unconscious control. It's that presence, that just knowing that other people that affects other people at a subconscious level. And that's so powerful, because again, when we're told what to do, a lot of times we might do it, but there's a resistance, or it doesn't come from within. And this person with command is able to really influence others, so that they're acting from within, and it's very sustainable.
So my instructor, who was an amazingly gifted horsewoman, was Deborah Dowse of in Dutchess County, of the in Rhinebeck, of the riding stable, and her family was friends of FDR's, and just an amazing woman, had amazing history, and her presence was so much. If we could have gone back and done her strengths, I'm sure command would have been in there. Now, one of the things I think that probably was something maybe she wished for more was that she showed up so certain that I bet people rarely said, Deborah, do you need help?
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, about sort of command, and maybe that's what they may not be receiving?
Yeah, and that's really true. And I think that's a great awareness. And, as we're talking about somebody with command, showing up and bringing that, that confidence and that clarity, and almost that intuitive trust.
Yes.
We tend to not possibly question and say, where could they be struggling? Are they struggling?
Yeah.
How do we lean in and connect it at a level of asking, how are you? Or, because there's that just, they're, they've got their shit together. They've got everything together. Look at that. This is who they are. So, it's how do they ask for help?
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing, and giving them the space to be able to do that. I mean, I think, let me just pull back into a very coach-like thing, Augusta, which is, I feel like lately all people have been doing is telling me what to do versus checking in with me to say, what could be helpful? How could I help? What would be most useful? is with someone in your life that has command, if you're not sure what they may need, that's a good sign, because you're not going to just assume you know. Good. Don't. Ask. Where might I be helpful? Could you use some help? And the other part of it is assume that they do need help. And even if what they need help is a smile, just your smile, right? Or your buy-in, or for you to make your bed, or, for whatever that is. But these people aren't superhuman. They're still human. Their tendency is to just show up in a sense of everything's good. Everything's going to be okay. But that doesn't mean at some point they don't need refueling. They don't need the support. And depending on, if they come up against somebody who's deliberative, which is very much a take your time and make that decision. And, God help if they're married to somebody with deliberative, because you've got command that's like, could make the decision on the spot, right?
Yeah.
Gut instinct, intuition. Right. And that deliberative person's like looking at them going, how could you possibly know that? You have to take an hour to process this. Is that there can be a lot of rub, and that can actually create a lot of tension for both parties, but especially for command, because their no nonsense, let's get to it, is the complete opposite of deliberative. Both parties are going to be extremely certain whenever they get to their answer.
Yes.
It's just command is almost like, again, it's similar to strategic. It happens super fast.
Absolutely. Yeah. And command does show up. I mean, it's most often found with strategic as one of them, for sure. So it's, yeah. And, and we talk about in this series, like, who are we being? How are we, really able to tune in and trust to our inner best ways of being. And command is, you're lucky, I think, if you have this. It is very rare. How is it, are you utilizing it, especially in all this uncertainty and change? Like, how can you be a leader within yourself, within your family, your community, just knowing that you have this strength? So it's, we encourage everyone, of course, being a strength-based coaching company, to find out what your top strengths are, because even if you have similar strengths from someone else, they are all going to interact with the other 4 top ones differently and based on your own life experiences. Yeah. So it's so fascinating to work with people and find out what their top strengths are and help them really understand how to trust how they're showing up.
Yes. Yes. I will say this one last thing, Augusta, if I may, is occasionally someone with command has a little less patience than others might. So right. when you're thinking about for yourself as who are you being and how can you show up in uncertain times, is your foundational strength is being able to navigate, at least outwardly looking like you can navigate and have the certainty to navigate whatever's thrown at you. Remember, most people don't have that. So if you just have a little patience that eventually someone's going to get to that, or helping them tap into their strengths to get to your self-assurance, to get to your certainty, to get to your understanding and intuition, I just want to say patience is a really powerful tool that someone with command can actually really master, because it takes it to this whole other level of knowing, even though action feels like it needs to be taken, bringing others along sometimes takes patience to do, and that not everybody's brain works like yours does. So that's Absolutely. The beauty of CliftonStrengths, right?
Absolutely. That is so true, Amy. Oh my goodness. Well, I am looking forward to, I mean, I actually, after looking at this again, we've spoken about command and other series, but I really want to go through and it's just fascinating to me that I don't come across it that often. So I'm really hoping that I do. And this is one of the strengths that I really, I love that, because again, it's that truth seeking, that ability to know, to intuitively know the truth, and then to just lean into whatever conflict or, crisis that might be in the way of getting to it. That is just, what a wonderful way to be. So if you find that you have command, how can you bring it to the forefront? How can you work with others, show up in ways that will be so beneficial to not only yourself, but to others?
And watch your adjustment of your control level, because it's not bullying and it's not pushing things on people. It's helping them see what you see and help them feel that certainty and that solace of what you see and help them move forward. I love it.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
Love it. Thanks, Augusta, so much. That was so great. I'm so glad. And to those that have command, reach out, give us some feedback, share what else you're seeing. So thanks so much.
I'll see you next week on another episode of this series, Amy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Cheers.